Above ground, Buenos Aires looks alive. Honking cars, crowded sidewalks, street vendors, and cyclists weaving through bike lanes. But beneath that everyday bustle lies a different world. A 100-year-old subway network that runs under the city like a web of tree roots or the arteries of a body. It's dramatic. Argentina opened the first subway in South America in 1913. Back then, it was a symbol of modern progress. Today, that same system feels like an antique watch trying to power a modern city. Trains and tracks that once worked fine are showing their age. Some rolling stock is decades old, maintenance costs are climbing, and the electrical systems struggle to keep up. Picture an old smartphone that can't run new apps. The hardware simply wasn't built for today's demands. That contrast, glorious past versus risky present, creates a real human problem. Commuters depend on the subway to get to work, school, and home. A failure here isn't just an inconvenience, it can endanger lives. So Argentina launched a bold plan to rebuild the network. But when the world answered the call, only China and India reached the final round, and controversy followed. Next, we'll dig into how a century of wear and changing city needs turned a pioneering subway into an urgent national crisis. When Argentina's capital first built its subway, it was ahead of its time. But after more than 100 years of constant use, the system has become a shadow of its former glory. Today, Buenos Aires Metro covers just under 70 kilometers across 7 lines. That may sound like a lot, but for a city of over 15 million people in the metro area, it's far too small. In 2019, more than 300 million passengers squeezed onto these trains, putting enormous strain on an already outdated system. The most striking problem is age. Many of the trains people ride daily are older than their grandparents. For example, Line B, the busiest route, carries 180,000 people every single day. Yet its main trains are Japanese Mitsubishi models built more than 60 years ago. Others are Spanish CAF trains that have been running for over 20 years. Imagine sending an old, worn-out car onto the highway every day with thousands of passengers inside. That's essentially what's happening. It's not just the trains. The tracks themselves are warped in some places from decades of heavy use and minimal upgrades. The metro spends over $6 million each year just on maintenance, but that still isn't enough to keep everything safe. And the power system, the part that feeds electricity to the trains, is underpowered, making it hard to introduce new, modern vehicles. This isn't just inconvenient. A single serious accident underground could cost hundreds of lives. For Argentina, it became clear patchwork fixes wouldn't cut it anymore. A complete renewal was the only way forward. Next, let's look at how Argentina came up with a bold rescue plan to modernize its metro for the 21st century. By 2023, Argentina realized it couldn't just keep patching up its subway system like an old roof full of leaks. Something bigger had to be done. That year, the government launched a subway renewal program, at first with a modest budget of around $150 million. The plan was simple. Buy 16 brand new trains, each with 6 cars, to relieve the pressure on Line B, the city's busiest route. But once engineers and planners dug deeper, they uncovered a bigger problem. Line B wasn't the only one in trouble. Other lines were also running dangerously old trains, and the entire system was falling behind the city's rapid growth. It was like trying to replace one worn-out tire when all 4 were bald and ready to burst. So the government changed course. Instead of just 16 trains, the order jumped to 29 trains, raising the project's budget to about $300 million. This wasn't just about adding new cars. It was about building a system ready for the future. The upgrades included switching the power supply from 600 volts to 1500 volts, making the network stronger and more efficient, and even preparing for the possibility of automated train systems down the line. This was a bold move for Argentina, especially considering its economic challenges. But officials saw the metro as more than a transport project. It was about safety, modernization, and showing that Buenos Aires could once again stand alongside major world cities. The question then became, who could actually deliver this massive upgrade? That's where the bidding war began. Next, let's explore how Argentina's open call for partners turned into a high-stakes global competition. When Argentina announced its subway renewal project, the world paid attention. Upgrading an entire metro system in one of South America's largest cities was no small job, and more than 30 international companies showed interest. It wasn't just about trains. It was about influence, long-term contracts, and a chance to showcase technology on a global stage. After the first rounds of evaluation, most competitors were eliminated. Only a handful of serious contenders remained, and in the end, just 2 countries reached the final round. India, represented by the company BELM, and China, represented by CRRC, the world's largest train manufacturer. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Each side prepared detailed proposals, promising not only to supply trains but also to maintain them, adapt to Argentina's unique infrastructure, and provide financing solutions. Argentina wasn't just buying trains, it was choosing a long-term partner. During this process, India played an active role. BELM representatives reportedly contacted Argentine officials almost daily, emphasizing their commitment and promising high-quality delivery on time. China, on the other hand, leaned on its global track record and decades of experience, offering a package that blended technology, reliability, and cost efficiency. But as the competition heated up, controversy followed. When Argentina eventually awarded the project to China, India accused its rival of bribing officials to win the bid. Whether true or not, the real story lies in the technical details, cost comparisons, and trust built over years of cooperation. So why exactly did Argentina reject India's proposal, even with its aggressive campaign? Next, we'll break down why India lost the bid despite making it to the final round. On paper, India's BELM looks strong. The company has a solid reputation at home, with several big railway projects under its belt. They've developed stylish train designs, built large factories with mass production capacity, and even boosted public interest in modern rail transit across India. At first glance, they seemed like a natural partner for Argentina. But when Argentina's technical team dug into the details, problems surfaced. The biggest issue was performance. BELM's proposed trains had a powertrain system that lacked stability. In simple terms, this meant the trains could suffer from inconsistent power delivery, a dangerous flaw for a busy subway network that runs on strict schedules. Even small delays or breakdowns underground can quickly snowball into chaos for thousands of daily commuters. Comfort was another deal breaker. Argentina sent teams to inspect BELM trains already running in Indian cities. What they found wasn't encouraging. The rides were noisy, sound insulation was weak, and the passenger experience felt rough compared to global standards. Then there was the money. BELM's upfront price tag looked competitive, but when Argentina calculated the long-term costs, maintenance, spare parts, and lifespan, the Indian trains actually turned out to be about $1 million more expensive than the Chinese option. Over decades, that kind of difference adds up, especially for a country already under financial pressure. In the end, BELM's trains were seen as less reliable, less comfortable, and more costly over time. India's aggressive lobbying couldn't hide those technical shortcomings. Argentina wanted a solution that was proven, cost-effective, and safe, and that's where China came in. Next, we'll dive into why China's CRRC stood out and ultimately won Argentina's trust. China's CRRC had something India didn't: a long, proven track record. CRRC isn't just the largest train manufacturer in the world. It's a company with over 30 years of international experience, supplying rail vehicles to dozens of countries. In fact, they've exported more than 10,000 rail cars worldwide, and many cities already rely on them daily. For Argentina, That global reputation mattered. But it wasn't just about size. Argentina already knew CRRC's work firsthand. For nearly 20 years, Chinese-made trains have been running in Buenos Aires, from subway cars to long-distance buses. Locals had ridden them, trusted them, and found them safe and comfortable. That familiarity gave China a huge edge. The New Deal is ambitious. CRRC will build 174 subway cars grouped into 29 train sets, with the first batch arriving in 2027. Alongside the trains, Argentina will overhaul its infrastructure, raising the power system from 600 volts to 1500 volts, replacing tracks, and switching from the older third rail system to an overhead catenary system, which is safer and more efficient. What made CRRC stand out was how well it adapted its designs to Argentina's specific challenges. The company redesigned key components to handle weaker power grids and imperfect tracks, conditions that would have tripped up less experienced builders. In other words, China didn't just sell trains, it sold a tailor-made solution for Buenos Aires. This wasn't just a purchase, it was a partnership. CRRC promised not only to deliver trains, but to stay involved, ensuring maintenance, technical upgrades, and long-term reliability. Compared to India's proposal, China offered a more complete package, combining technology, experience, and trust built over years. Next, let's look at the real-world proof: how China had already shaped Argentina's metro before this New Deal. Argentina's trust in China didn't come out of nowhere. It was built over a decade of real-world results. Back in 2013, Buenos Aires upgraded Line A, the oldest subway line in South America, with Chinese-made trains from CRRC. That was a turning point. The line stretches about 8.5 kilometers with 16 stations, running through some of the city's most famous landmarks: Plaza de Mayo, the National Congress, and the Obelisk. For years, it had relied on outdated cars that struggled to keep up with demand. When the Chinese trains arrived, the difference was clear. These new trains were modern, safer, and designed for heavy passenger loads. Each had a 5-car configuration, carrying up to 1,148 people when fully loaded. Over the last decade, they've traveled millions of kilometers, transported hundreds of millions of passengers, and maintained an extremely low failure rate, below 5%. Most importantly, there were no major safety incidents caused by vehicle quality. Passengers noticed the change too. Compared to the noisy, bumpy rides of older trains, the CRRC cars felt smoother, quieter, and more comfortable. This history gave China a strong advantage in the latest bidding war. Argentina didn't have to wonder if CRRC could deliver. It had already experienced the results. India, on the other hand, couldn't point to a single successful metro partnership in the country. Next, we'll wrap up with the bigger picture: what this decision means for Argentina's future, and for the global competition between India and China. Argentina's decision to choose China over India wasn't just about trains, it was about shaping the future of its cities. The Buenos Aires subway isn't a side project. It's the backbone of daily life for millions of people. A reliable, safe, and modern metro means shorter commutes, fewer accidents, and a city that can keep pace with the 21st century. By picking CRRC, Argentina went with the option that promised not just new trains but a complete system upgrade: stronger power supply, renewed tracks, and technology adapted to local challenges. Beyond transportation, this choice also signals something bigger. Infrastructure deals are never only about technology. They reflect alliances, trust, and geopolitical direction. By partnering with China again, Argentina is showing confidence in Beijing's role as a long-term partner in Latin America. For Buenos Aires residents, though, the bottom line is simple. By 2027, they can expect safer, faster, and more comfortable rides on their daily subway trips. And for Argentina as a whole, this project is a step toward reclaiming its place as a modern, forward-looking nation. So the story of Argentina's subway is more than just about trains. It's about how countries choose their future, who they trust, who they invest in, and who they believe can deliver when it matters most. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to follow more stories about how technology, infrastructure, and geopolitics are shaping our world, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, you'll never miss the next big story.